Has anyone ever given a nice guy a chance after they've thrown a tantrum because you didn't let them treat you like a queen? And if you did, how did it work out? My sister did. She is a hairstylist and one of her clients was very aggressive about asking her out. He repeatedly bought flowers, concert tickets, and other gifts which he brought to her at work, and she said no each time because he seemed a little off. He got in a car accident and was really badly injured, and she felt sorry for him, so she went out with him finally. They dated a few months before breaking up. I don't know the exact reason why. But after that he started stalking her. It's been over 5 years since then and he is still keeping tabs on her. She's reported him to the police multiple times, has a restraining order, and has blocked him on Facebook / everywhere else, but every few months he finds a way to contact her. So if you get weird vibes from someone, don't give them a chance or you might end up with a lifelong stalker like my sister has. Yes. The tantrums continued throughout the relationship. He was very controlling. If I was out with friends he would be upset that I was having fun without him. He ended up cheating on me and dumping me only to beg me back. He semi-staked me for a couple of years. Had an online blog about what I did each day and tried to befriend my exes. He got upset and really suicidal after I rejected him, culminating in one night telling me he was going to kill himself. I felt guilty and tried to do everything I could to help him get through it, including being his girlfriend. He abused me physically, emotionally, financially, and sexually for 2 years, at one point trying to force pregnancy on me to trap me. His family was obsessed with us getting married and having kids, and they all acted like it was what was going to happen. I had no input, they all acted like I was his property. I got into college on a scholarship fairly far away, moved into the dorms, and escaped. Started seeing a wonderful therapist. Still have issues, but am now in a loving and stable relationship where I have equal say and control over things. I didn't, but my friend did. See, me and this guy had a mutual friend. This guy saw himself as a white knight and would use that term to describe himself. He had a code of honor, and he was always somebody who'd walk the girl home, lend out his jacket, that sort of thing. Well, mutual friend was asked out by this guy, and he threw a fit when she turned him down. So, she gave him a chance. At first, she was happy. He pulled out chairs, lent her his jacket, brought her gifts, that kind of thing. But, it became apparent that he was incredibly possessive and things were always on his terms. So, they broke up. About 6 months after this guy was dumped, he decided he liked me. Telling him I wasn't interested didn't work the first or second time, so the third time I decided to just come out and tell him I was asexual. I hadn't done so before because I wasn't sure how he'd take it. He decided that I was lucky he was such a nice guy, because if he wasn't then he'd have taken that as a challenge. I haven't hung out with this guy since then. Just, no. Edit. Mutual not mutual, thanks. Yes, I did once, and I wish I didn't. He wasn't a nice guy after all. He treated me like I was the ugly one. I never felt more shitty in my whole life than when I was with him. I should have known. I dated a guy in high school. Relationship was okay but it was long distance so we amicably ended it. He was the one that brought it up and I agreed. Fast forward 6 months and he randomly messages me. Everything is friendly until I mention that I have a new boyfriend. The conversation did a quick 180 from hi how are you to you'll never find someone like me and how could I start dating again so soon. I blocked his ass real fast. And he was right, I never did find another guy like him because I married the new boyfriend and we're still together 18 years later. I've had this situation too. Dated a guy for a few months. From the beginning though, he was just embarrassing. We had mutual friends, and he would spend full outings, parties, weekend trips voicing his disbelief that I would date him. Telling people how lucky he was in a self-deprecating way that was gross, that he has won the lotto and I was out of his league, no matter how many times I asked him to quit it as he did it every single time we were in public. It got so bad that his best friend actually snapped and told him in the middle of a self-deprecating rant how embarrassing it was and to look at how uncomfortable he was making me. That started a huge argument about but she's a queen, I'm just treating her like one. When I had the audacity to agree with his best friend, full cry meltdown. In front of everyone. To the point where people left a paid weekend early because he made everyone so fucking uncomfortable. Broke up with him that weekend. The breakup lasted 4 hours with me begging him to GTF out of my house while he cried and cried and cried about how he treats me so well. How could I do this to him? Then it turned to rage. Had to block him on everything when I started dating someone months later. A lot of friends blocked him as well when they found out he was stalking me, parking outside my home for hours, etc. I was naive and dumb. Looking back, I wish I had been aware enough to recognize emotional manipulation. If you're dating someone and they act like you're doing them a favor, don't date that person. Even in the comments, most of these guys turn out to be super manipulative. My sister had a nice guy friend in high school. At first he was a great guy, but as he got more impatient with her deciding whether or not to date him, he became very manipulative. So since we're just friends, I guess it was okay for me to go to Victoria's Secret with my ex and watch her try on lingerie? Even though we broke up, my opinion still matters to her because I'm such a good guy. My innocent and self-conscious sister who didn't want to sound like a control freak. No, I guess that's cool. 1 week later they're dating. Mean comments all throughout the relationship. BTW, my friends think you're stupid, but I defended you. BTW, my brother thinks you're a bitch, but I defended you. Now my brother and I aren't talking. You matter more. On the phone. Sister talking about her day. Boyfriend barely paying attention. Wow. Cool. Okay. Wait, what? Sorry, playing video games. Sister sincerely, oh well, if you're busy I can call you back later. Blow up. Are you serious? You really think I'd rather play games than talk to you? That's what you think of me? Are you really that shallow? Fuck you, click. After that I told her to dump him, but he called back crying and apologizing. So she gave him another chance. Eventually she broke up with him, and the next day he skipped school and had his friends tell her that he slit his wrists last night and was in an intensive care unit because of her. She called me flipping out saying I needed to take her to the hospital to see him. I showed up at the school with a peach Bellini to calm her down. Low alcohol. She was only a junior after all. What are older sisters for? She was all okay, so which hospital is he at? I explained that he wasn't in ICU, he was home playing video games. She didn't believe me. He had already blocked her on Facebook, but I was still his friend, so I showed her all his posts from that day taking some me time. Guys, I finally beat Final Fantasy Home Alone. S'mores for lunch? Yeah, she never talked to him again. I was once in a similar situation. I dated a sweet guy. But honestly, sweet is subjective. He was a gentleman. But he insisted on always opening the car door for me. He literally would not let me touch the car handle, like at all, letting me eat first always, instead of both at the same time, cause honestly it's not a biggie for me. Commented that I should never cut my hair, etc. I felt like I was with a man from the 50s. It was draining to be treated like a queen instead of an equal. Other than that, he was okay. Anyways, when I broke up with him, I felt like he didn't want to let me go. Like I had to explain over and over again that I wasn't feeling it and that he deserved someone that would feel the same way about him. He hung up the phone with, "You don't know what you missed out on." Okay, I guess. My first boyfriend visibly sulked if I ever opened the door for him, or even opened my own door. When I finally got him to tell me why, it was that he thought I was publicly showing everyone that I was making him my bitch. If I had any dating experience, I would have seen what a huge red flag that was. I ended up losing my summer job because he just started showing up every day and my supervisors thought I was miserable and inviting him. When I told him I needed space, he left more than 30 messages on my cell and so many voicemails on my digital answering machine that it broke. This is when it was a brand new thing and they couldn't handle much. Then, later that same morning, he showed up at my gynecologist appointment. Wow, it actually sounds so much worse when I see it written down. Yes. It worked out that he also felt entitled to other things and felt like no wasn't an acceptable answer for things like sex when he did so much for me. I took out the trash. That's good for 2.5 sex credits, right? How many credits do I need for anal again? Way too many times in college. I had guys in the friend zone who I decided to give a chance because I was stupid and I felt sorry for them. My last straw was when a guy took me shopping. I said yes in lonely desperation on a Friday night. This was a Saturday afternoon. After every store I went into he would either criticize me for not wanting him to buy me anything, I'm not much of a shopper anyways, or ask me for sex because he bought me a used video game I wanted. Never again. There's a good reason incels are incels. Met a guy online and he seemed really nice. He was a tad pushy about meeting up but I ignored that little feeling. We met up shortly after for a quick date. I think we got coffee and chatted. It was instant chemistry. He had 2 sons and I have 2 kids, both open to blended families, goal-oriented, smart, easy conversation. We decided to go out again the next night. Really nice date and he was a complete gentleman. He mentioned on the date we'd have to get the kids together to see if they like each other. I laughed it off, like, yeah maybe down the road, we just met, and continued the date. 2 days later, during our texting I casually mentioned I was going to take my kids on a nature walk and I'd text him when I was back. He shows up with his kids. Now, I don't have it in me to be mean to children so I played nice and introduced myself. They were around 5 and 7, and very sweet boys, but inside I was creeped the fuck out. After we parted ways I called him and told him that was not cool at all. Of course, he played victim and hurt until I said I was uncomfortable with what he did. Then it was I'm just trying to love you and your kids, how can we be together if they don't meet, and you should appreciate a man trying with a woman with 2 kids, as if he didn't have to his damn self. He sent angry messages for about a week, I never would respond and he went away. To clarify, this all happened in a 2-week span. From start to finish. I had a guy who would constantly ask me out or make really awkward advances for like a year plus. I finally hit a pretty low point after coming out of a relationship and agreed to go out on a date. He seemed actually kind of nice and we ended up dating and lived together for a bit. It all turned sour though, when he realized that all his cute punk girl bullshit he had projected onto me wasn't who I am and I wasn't changing to what he wanted me to be, and then all of a sudden he was out with friends constantly and coming home drunk. The morning he came home, around 6 AM, telling me he kissed another woman finally woke me up and I left him. He would still send me messages for months after we broke up, not acknowledging my replies saying I have a boyfriend and it's inappropriate to say these things. Even now if I unblock him from social media I'll get a message within a few days saying things like, hey, still beautiful I see, or hey cutie/sweetie etc and he gets blocked again. Ugh. This nice guy I dated from Tinder was so annoying that I finally gave him a chance. We ended up dating for a year. He was really sensitive and sweet, unlike others I've met from Tinder. But what actually ended up happening were the following things. He would cry every single day that I didn't love him, and threw a fit crying when I didn't approve of an Instagram post he made about us, because I looked horrible and it's my right to not want a picture of me online. Would tell me repeatedly that I wasn't as attractive as my roommates, his friends, girls he went to college with, my own relatives, etc. Tried to have a threesome with my roommate that I didn't even ask for and didn't want to be involved in. Would cry when the dildo he used on me did a better job than him. Would throw a fit when my father asked him to go buy me a bagel down the street in a city we were in, and he was on the verge of crying because he was afraid he would get mugged. When I told him I was probably gonna be the breadwinner and wore the pants in the relationship, he tried to get back at me by asserting his masculinity and racing me on the highway and did BDSM. Refused to wear condoms and when I had a pregnancy scare, he lied to me saying he didn't ejaculate inside me, but later I found out he actually didn't, he knew about it. But then cried and threw a fit when I said I was sure I was pregnant. Would cry about how much he loves his mom every day but threw things at her when they fought. Would cry because he had a nightmare that minorities were hurting me. There's so much more but those are just some highlights. Edit. Don't worry, I broke up with him after that last one happened. Second edit. Some of y'all honestly don't understand how hard it is to get out of abusive relationships. Third edit. For those of you saying something doesn't add up because I have another post about my partner now, I mentioned in that post we broke up for a while. This was the guy I dated in between. Tinder is for hookups mainly anyway and he was rebound. Fourth edit. I said the breadwinner stuff because I was sick of his blatant sexism and needed to put him in his fucking place. My wife did while she was in college. He had constant low self-esteem which annoyed her. He also loved making fun of other people. Sounds like he was just a toxic guy. When she broke up with him he wrote a suicide note naming her as the reason and showed up on campus with a gun. Fortunately nothing happened. He got some therapy and wasn't allowed back at the school. I don't get it. Being treated like a queen means that you get a plot of land and subjects, right? These guys seem to do the opposite. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.